Deadly Grounds Coffee knows how important your coffee is to you. Every batch is roasted to perfection with a unique special method that brings out the richest, deepest, smoothest flavor you'll ever find. We're coffee freaks too, and deadly serious about our brew. Just one sip and you'll know why we say, once you go deadly, you don't go back. It's truly coffee to die for. So when you're ready to get a little deadly, get online and order yours at getdeadly.com. It's coffee so good, it's scary.
Warning! Warning!
Today's episode contains spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie or TV show that we are talking about, we highly recommend that you watch it first, then listen to this episode. Thank you.
What kind of a sick school is this?
Uh-oh, Dongo!
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
You got spunk. I hate spunk.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger!
Oh, righty then.
How you doing?
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Say hello to my little friend! I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
What are you people? On dope?
Stop whining!
I got a crap on deck that can choke a donkey.
Who is your daddy?
I'm sorry, but all questions must be submitted in writing.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Can I do that?
I'll be back.
A dynamite! Show me the money! Don't!
Up your nose with your rubber hose.
A what?
I'm sailing! I'm sailing!
Groovy.
You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
Here's looking at you, kid.
We got no food, we got no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off!
Come to the coast and get together, have a few laughs.
Hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey!
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
I love it when a plan comes together.
What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
We're on a mission from God.
Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of Then Is Now podcast. I am your host, Rigor. 50 years ago, on May 8th, 1971, a movie came out that was not your average horror picture. A blend of horror, humor, and music put together in a way that seems perfectly natural, yet unlike any movie before it. It's a tale of revenge by a man driven insane because of the death of his wife, and the fantastic and horrific ways in which he exacts his revenge, told in a story that's shrouded somewhat in dark comedy. I'm talking, of course, about The Abominable Dr. Phibes, starring the legendary horror actor Vincent Price. The movie was so well received that it garnered a sequel in 1972 called Dr. Phibes Rises Again. On today's show, we not only have the return of an amazing guest co-host, but also the creator of Dr. Phibes, William Goldstein, and his son Damon. So go and watch these films, then come back here to listen to our excellent discussion with the Goldsteins and learn about a horror picture that you may not have heard of, but will entertain you immensely. Class is in session.
I have a bad feeling about this.
How could I possibly be expected to handle school on a day like this?
Hey, you in my class? I am today.
I think you should consider transferring to shop class. Woo-woo! Now, very few students are severely injured in shop class.
Bueller.
When you were in school,
Bueller.
did you ever cut class?
Bueller.
Yeah, I guess I did. Sure, most kids cut glasses.
Good, sign this. He's sick.
I get so lonely when I hear that third attendance bell ring and all my kids are not here.
7 years of college down the drain.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
You lack discipline. As long as I'm here, there will be no grades or gold stars or demerits. We're gonna have recess all the time.
Woo!
Go, play, and have fun now!
Folks, my co-host today was a guest on episode 5, which has been cited by many listeners as one of their favorite episodes to date. He also guest co-hosted with me on our other show, The East Meets the West. He's a writer, producer, and one of the hardest working podcasters in the industry. Please welcome the host of the beloved show, Monster Kid Radio, Mr. Derek M. Koch. Welcome, Derek.
You're laying that on pretty thick, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So happy you're able to join us here on what's going to be a fabulous episode of Then Is Now.
I've been looking forward to it.
Awesome. So our other guests today are no strangers to horror. William Goldstein is the creator of Dr. Phibes and the best-selling author of the cult classic Dr. Phibes series, including Dr. Phibes Rises Again, Dr. Phibes in the Beginning, and the recently published Dr. Phibes Volnavia's Secret. He's also the co-writer of the top-grossing horror motion picture, The Abominable Dr. Phibes, starring Vincent Price, which was recently re-released on Blu-ray, and he's the screenwriter for the 1976 picture The Amazing Dobermans. He's currently busy collaborating with his son, Damon Goldstein, who has co-written many of the books I just mentioned, as well as Dr. Phibes, The Androbots. Please welcome to the show, William and Damon Goldstein.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. I'm so honored to have you all here. It's going to be a great episode. I'm just going to give a brief synopsis of the Phibes films, and then we'll sort of dive into that, okay?
Sounds great.
All right.
What lovely music for a murder, or 2, or 3, or 9.
Who's this?
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet a dear friend.
9 killed you. 9 shall die.
Your wife, no, Phibes. But you I will kill.
But you can't, Doctor. I am already dead.
Here, how are we going to get him off this? You take his head, and I'll take his feet. Let's unscrew him.
Dr. Phibes, who samples the finer things of life in his own inimitable way, and experiments with fascinating instruments of death.
The what, sir? The guitar. The 10 curses visited upon the pharaohs before Exodus.
9 shall die. 9 eternities in doom.
Curse of boils, of bats. Frogs? Frogs, yes. And the curse of blood. Curse of hail in the bloody middle of nowhere.
Are you ready for Dr. Phibes?
Probably the most terrifying motion picture you'll ever see.
The Abominable Dr. Phibes came out in 1971, and the film follows the title character, Dr. Anton Phibes, who blames the medical team that attended to his wife's surgery 4 years prior for her death, and sets out to exact vengeance on each one. Phibes is inspired in his murderous spree by the 10 plagues of Egypt from the Old Testament. Then, in 1972, came Dr. Phibes Rises Again. After seeking vengeance on the doctors, whom he blamed for his wife's death in the first film, Phibes returns to seek the mythical elixir of eternal life in Egypt, while he pursues a centuries-old man who holds the ancient secrets that Phibes needs. So, William, I had read, and tell me if this is true or not, or tell us what the process was, but I read that the concept for this movie, for the first movie, came to you in a series of dreams that you had over the course of a week.
That's true. And we were in San Francisco. We were living in San Francisco at the time, and the fog comes in at 2:00, and that sort of gets things working. But yes, for 1 week, very vivid dreams about this doctor. The original name was Dr. Phibes, Phibe, but it became Phibes somewhat later, and the original story unfolded during those dreams.
That's amazing. And you brought it to the co-writer?
Yeah, if you don't mind some dates. 1964 is when the original story evolved in these dreams. In 1968, I connected back up with my high school chum, Jim Whiten, who had been living in Hollywood at the time and had some success with television. We wrote the screenplay, and then the unexpected happened. It was picked up within a year by Sam Arkoff and AIP, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. So, Derek, question for you. When was the first time that you saw The Abominable Dr. Phibes?
Oh, man, it's been a while. I originally had that the double feature DVD that had come out with both of the films on there.
Yep.
So it's been years. I just recently rewatched both of these movies. The first one last night and the other one this morning, just to make sure that they're fresh in my memory. But yeah, it's been a while. I've had these movies in my collection and in my life for a long time.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, Damon, I was telling Damon on the phone a while ago, I saw it like when I was like 8 or 9 years old. We were visiting some friends in New Hampshire. I was living in Massachusetts at the time, and I will just never forget it. It was one of those things that even though it was, I mean, my parents always took me to scary movies anyways. So even though it was kind of scary, I was fascinated by it. I just loved the story. And I rewatched both of them again in the past week as well.
Exactly, Derek. Rigor, that's my memory too. I mean, I saw it when I was 13 and in fact took a bunch of my friends from the neighborhood down to Market Street in San Francisco for the San Francisco premiere. And the production, to me, all the colors and the set and the acting, of course, Vincent Price stole the whole show with his performance, and he really is Dr. Phibes, and it's just it's one of those things that you do remember, and especially since we were both so young. You know, you're impressionable. You know, movies were really state of the art then, and that was the best entertainment. So to take all my friends down there, that was just a lot of fun. And it's like it was just yesterday because the movie still relates today, and the story, obviously, half love story, half horror story, still resonates as well today.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it definitely just everything, like you said, it holds up so well, and it's so entertaining from beginning to end. It's you know, I like to try and recommend things to younger people in the audience on this show, and I definitely think they should see this movie because it just stands out. It's such an interesting combination of, you know, horror and dark comedy and just all these things that you really hadn't seen before in a movie like that, you know?
Well, that's true, and it actually has been the resource and inspiration for newer movies like Thor or Seven. Even these movies, while they went more into the blood and guts and the gore, I've heard both of the directors and writers of those movies say they did get their inspiration from Dr. Phibes, and so. You know, we could even dub Dr. Phibes the first theatrical movie serial killer, but he's a anti-hero only in name, because when you watch the film, you want him to succeed, even though he's killing people. So it connects on a lot of levels, a lot of different levels there.
That's funny.
I'm hearing something, if I may, that I wanted to carry through in these stories. And the stories are, the funny thing about writing books, you meet people in books, and they have their own stories, and you finish the one book, and you've learned a little bit about them, and then in later books you come across that character again, and there's something new in that character. So that's been the phenomenon in the book series. But
yeah.
The thing that's coming through in this conversation is it's good to know, namely that Phibes is a sympathetic character because his is an eternal love, and all he ever wants to do is, and the word is the $25 word, he wants to revivify his beloved Victoria Regina. Anything and anyone that gets in his way pays a price, and the price is death. But he's not a common killer. he uses
Right.
Classic themes. The first film, of course, was Book of Exodus, the Koch. Later themes we won't go into now, but they are there, and I think those two elements is what keeps the audiences and the fans coming. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, no, I agree with you. Phibes to me, he's not a villain. He's anybody who's lost someone can identify with him, and he's just. It's not just anger. He's not just getting true vengeance. He's how do I phrase this? He's striking out against the people because he believes they were responsible for Victoria's death, but it stems from this overpowering grief, at least in my book.
Sure. It's a poetic.
Yeah.
It's a poetic murdering.
Yeah.
You go ahead, Derek.
Well, no, I was going to say, yeah, I agree with you. I about 15, 20 years ago, I used to work retail, and I was working in it wasn't a Suncoast, but it was one of those store. Well, actually, no, I take it back. It was a Suncoast video that I was working at, and I was known as the horror guy there. If anybody came in looking for horror movies to buy, I was the one that they would always come to, and I would always try to steer them towards some of the more, classic stuff, because that's what I was into. And if I knew somebody was looking for one of these bloody slasher movies, whatever, and these gory films from now, I would try to steer them towards things like Dr. Phibes, because I felt like Dr. Phibes would be a good crossover from, the modern, I guess, slasher movement to a more classic way of storytelling with Vincent Price and all that. I don't know if I won anybody over, made any new fans or anything, but I always tried to steer people towards that because I felt like it would serve as a good vessel to get people from the more modern stuff to the more classic way of storytelling with Vincent Price, with the way that the murders were handled, with the performances, with the music. There's just so much about Phibes that I think resonates, and I mean, I can't imagine that people haven't seen this movie. They need to see this movie.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
We appreciate your hope, and we appreciate the results, because we do see results. The fans just keep coming. Damon has done a pretty good work in marshaling and mobilizing them, and all pointing toward the 50th anniversary in May. So, again, a big thank you to you both.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's just an honor to have you guys here. Damon, you had mentioned, too, that what this influenced modern movies, and I definitely saw a lot of influence from the Saw movies, or vice versa, influence in the Saw movies from Dr. Phibes. And it's just great how a movie that's 50 years old can still influence modern films.
Well, that is the very interesting thing, because not only do we see the influences, but the fans that we're getting feedback from, they're of a younger generation, yet they seem to be fixated and know their film history and prefer the older horror films. And so what we're getting in the industry, vis-a-vis Saw and Seven, is a direct homage, practically, to the old way of making horror films, and not just this blood and guts and frightening visuals. This is encouraging to writers in general, but specifically to us, because, as you say, 50 years, which that is the year, this year is the year of Dr. Phibes, and our 50th anniversary. So we're very excited to see how it has, as you say, held up, and even gone forward. To not gild the lily here, or announce anything before it's time, but we do have a third screenplay for the third Dr. Phibes film, and it is titled Forever Phibes. And we've been in negotiations, recent negotiations, to make this third film, possibly bring it into a Netflix series. So, yes, 50 years, but it's maybe 50 days in the sense that, we're still very active. My dad is, still very active. He's been writing these books, and I'll let him make his own announcement. We're still very active in trying to return Dr. Phibes to the silver screen, and if we can get him on Netflix, even better.
That's amazing. Do you guys have like a dream actor that would do the near impossible task of replacing Vincent Price for the third film?
Well, we do have an actor, a classically trained actor, attached to the project. Had the very good fortune to meet Malcolm McDowell on a happenstance, and I introduced myself. You always wonder, well, do you want to interrupt somebody's personal time, and maybe I shouldn't say anything or whatever. Or you don't want to approach anybody like that. But I was with my wife, and she said, "Go for it. You talk to him." And so I went up and, as I said, introduced myself. He remembered Dr. Phibes, and he said, "Yes, I'd be interested. Talk to my manager." Well, as they say, one thing led to another. We met for lunch, and Malcolm McDowell is signed on. He's attached to the project, and he will be reprising the role of Dr. Phibes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and we've gotten a lot of, super amount of good feedback for Malcolm McDowell. Everyone else, the whole time in between, 71 and now, everyone, including ourselves, was saying, well, Vincent, it can only be Vincent. Dr. Phibes is Vincent Price, and Vincent Price is Dr. Phibes, and neither the two shall be separated. Well, with Malcolm McDowell coming on, everyone is included him as being Dr. Phibes. They think it's great, and we're really looking forward to this coming to fruition.
That's so cool. And it's funny because, like, for over a decade, I've had this thought, because of the computers and what we can do with the computers now. I've always thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could scan in Vincent Price from head to toe, scan in every single line of dialogue he's ever said, and then you get a motion capture actor to play him, and you could make a whole new Vincent Price movie.
Let me.
Absolutely, you could.
Let me jump in here. You just touched one of the neural elements in the ongoing story. Phibes has an entourage, as you may have guessed, starting with Volnavia, his mute assistant.
Right.
He has built from scratch the Clockwork Wizards. And how did he do that? He recuperated at the Klingenstein Clinic high up in the Alps. And he was in a room number 4 with a sign on the door, Irgendein Unbekannter. They didn't know who he was at the time. He had lost his powers of speech. His room was 1 floor removed from the surgical pavilion. And from that, and what he could hear through the walls, the movement of the surgical instruments, he memorized surgical procedures.
Wow.
Save that for a moment. He also, in his early career, he was a member of HMDS, Her Majesty's Diplomatic Service. He lived in London and visited frequently the British Science Museum, where on display was Edward Babbage difference engine.
Oh, wow.
The original computer built in the 19th century. He made a replica of that. And with that and his knowledge of surgical procedures, he proceeded to build and develop not only Volnavia, but the Clockwork Wizards. One final note on the wizards, and we're going to see more of them. Traditionally, they're puppets, and the traditional puppet is an invention who wants to be and was invented to be looking more like humans. But we hear their lead singer, whose name is Sophie, who's making up for a performance in one of the later stories. She's at the mirror, and this line, and this is going to be a quote in coming for coming audiences. She looks in the mirror and she says to herself, "I know I'm supposed to be human," and then pauses and then looks back at herself in the mirror. Do I really want that? Now, for the first time, a puppet is asking the key question, what's so good about being human? Why would I want to do that? That we're going to carry on that theme in later stories. But for now, Phibes' mastery of surgical procedures and really the world's first computer enabled him to build his entourage. And they figure heavily in the later stories than in Forever Phibes, that story, which also has a new death geometry, similar to, but not identical with the biblical turn. So there's stuff that'll appeal to our high-tech audience. And the word for any creative enterprise that's had a history, you want to stay relevant. So this, among other things, will make the new Phibes relevant.
That's excellent. That's so great. I had two questions about Volnavia. One is, why did she follow him so blindly? And the other is, obviously she survived from the first movie to the second. Do you explain that in the book about Volnavia?
Up to a point. Remember, he made her, and he made her for a reason, namely that he could not continue with his forever mission, namely bringing about the revivification of his beloved Victoria Regina alone. And for example, he takes ice baths twice a day to cool his nervous system, which had essentially been fried during his. Let's go back to the car wreck. He's racing home on an Alpine 2-lane with black ice on it to be with his wife, who has been called into emergency surgery. His car spins out of control, and he's thrown down the roadway in the gravel 50 yards. In the meantime, the car itself, they use benzene fuel in performance cars in those days. So the fuel line was ruptured. The fuel, what was left in the tank, dripped down onto the electrical wiring, and there was this huge explosion which blew him further into the roadside. So he, having lost his powers of voice, he could not go on it alone, and because of that tremendous heat, he needed these daily ice baths. So that's a practical reason why he built her. And then similarly to keep him, among other things, when they lived in Maldine Square Mansion, they had a large ballroom, and Phibes tried to recreate the days of courtship that he had with his beloved. They were a couple who flashed across the society pages of 1920s continent. They were a dashing couple. He, the senior diplomat, she, a young American girl, and they made this brilliant dash of fame. And then it all exploded. So he, forever after, wherever they lived, and they moved in one of the later stories to Gramercy Square in New York. But he wanted to recreate those days, and part of that recreation was a ballroom in his mansion complete with the crystal ball and the champagne and so forth.
Wow, that's amazing.
You'll see more of that in the new stories as we move along.
And what was Vincent Price like in real life?
Very courtly, very, very, very courtly man. All his manners, but with a there's a story. Virginia North, who was Volnavia in the first film, and also Valley Kemp, who was Volnavia in the second film. They do early on in the film. They do a dance scene with him in the ballroom, and during that scene, it's supposed to be very formal, but he would as they're dancing, he would say funny things, and they had all they could do to keep from laughing, and of course that generated extra takes. But basically, a very genial guy, but also very formal and funny as well. That's an odd combination.
So when he would have to make these motions with his throat to indicate that he was speaking, he obviously wasn't speaking. They dubbed everything in post. Did he come up with that, or was there a plan to do that right from the beginning, or was that sort of an actor thing?
It was written in, and the film was shot in Elstree Studios near London. I was working in San Diego at the time. I wasn't on set, nor was Jim White, and rarely do writers get to be on set anyway. So the how that actually came to being, I would have to leave that up to the AD working on the set. There is one famous scene where they're sipping champagne, and here he goes with the champagne glass into his neck. So,
right.
So I think that's how he did. He probably was one of the contributors to how they worked that out.
That's so cool. Yeah, I wondered about that. That was one of the creepiest scenes for me in the movie.
It did get some comments.
Prepare for a spine-tingling, nerve-shattering podcast featuring all your favorite monsters. You won't believe your ears when you listen to Monster Kid Radio. Hear your host, Derek M. Cook, and his ever-rotating stable of guests discuss your favorite classic and sometimes not-so-classic monster movies. Subscribe to Monster Kid Radio through iTunes or Stitcher, or visit monsterkidradio.net before the next weekly episode of Monster Kid Radio. Go through the archives for interviews with Sarah Karloff, Victoria Price, and Joel Hodgson. Listen to the discussions about movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Island of Terror, and King Kong. And don't forget convention coverage from Monster Bash and the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, Classic Monsters, Modern Talk, and the Head of Rondo Hatton. Only on Monster Kid Radio.
Hello, this is Rod Barnett. I'm the host of The Bloody Pit, the podcast that examines films from across the decades. On The Bloody Pit, we have several ongoing series of shows within the show focused on specific things in genre cinema that I and my co-hosts find fascinating. There's a long-running series focused on Italian maestro Antonio Margheriti's films from the 1960s all the way up through 1990. There's an on-again, off-again series focused on 1970s science fiction films. There's an in-depth look at the Western movies that William Castle made before he struck out on his own and became the horror auteur that we know and love. A look at the classic Coffin Joe films from Brazil. And our long-term project to look at every Universal horror film made in the 1940s. That's a long project, people. It's going to take us a long time. Sprinkled in amongst those are various other episodes focused on other stranger areas of cinema, like Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, and even some obscure British crime films from time to time. So join me and my rotating crew of co-hosts as we examine the stranger side of cinema through an exploitation lens. Except when we don't. Yeah, you never really know exactly what to expect on The Bloody Pit. So join me for The Bloody Pit.
Greetings, this is Mr. Lobo. Are you a sinsomniac? Do you stay up late and watch what normal people call bad movies till dawn? Black and white low-budget potboilers, box office bombs, West German talking car movies, rock bands versus monster movies, broken down school films, midget zombie and midget spy flicks, guys in gorilla suit movies, even old TV commercials, inappropriate cartoons, drive-in snack bar ads, and worse? Well, we like to say they're not bad movies, just misunderstood. Stay up late with Miss Mittens, your host, Mr. Lobo, and a revolving door of special guests, fellow horror movie hosts, robot monsters, and lovely Real 7 girls for a late-night TV slumber party that we call Cinema Insomnia. You can watch us on channel OSI 74 for Roku. We even have some episodes on Amazon and Alpha Video DVD. You may never get a good night's sleep again.
Shark Bites Podcast. It's the greatest show in history. From the Dorkening Network, hosted by a nerd who's named Patsy. From movie reviews to tips on surviving the coronavirus, Shark Bites has it all. Follow us on Facebook and suggest topics at sharkbitespod@gmail.com. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
So, William, what was your involvement with the second film?
Well, all right. Let's open the door slightly to that. Jim and I wrote the second script on contract because AIP wanted to come right out. They really weren't prepared for the success of the first one, and having looked at the numbers, we were commissioned to write the second script. The title is Phibes Resurrectus, which is in the true Phibes vein. We worked with their story editor named Bob Lees and did not know at the time, so what else is new? There's a lot of undercover stuff in the business, right, that he was developing a different script with Bob Foose, the director of the first one. And at the same time, Jim Nicholson, who was Sam Arkoff's partner, he left the company. So we got left in second place, and our script was not produced.
Oh, man.
In the meantime, Phibes Rises Again was produced. There was a very interesting element in there where they're in the pyramids, and we see this watery expanse in the depths of one of the pyramids. And that I used that in the second novelization. This is true. There is quite a bit of water. The technical name for that is the Quaternary Aquifer. And that water beneath the pyramid, the Great Pyramid particularly, is called fossil water because for 3,000 years it's never seen the light of day or felt natural air. And one of the reasons that Phibes wanted to go to the pyramids, that we established this in the story, is for the beneficial effects of this fossil water. And that's as much as I can say.
Okay. So when you did the first film, did you already have in mind a plan to continue the story, or did that sort of grow out of the fact that they demanded a sequel since the first one did so well?
How can I say that? How can I answer that? I'll give you the generic answer. We knew we had moved to L.A. soon after the premiere. Lock, stock, and barrel moved, and Damon can attest to this. We were living pretty well in San Diego's a wonderful place to live. Work in the afternoon and go surfing when you come home, and it's just lovely. But we moved up to L.A. and we were Jim and I were in almost daily contact about where do we go with this. And the result of that is I know in my files, and Jim passed away in 2016, but he donated his papers to the Troy Library. So I'm sure in those papers there are, in various stages of completion, other Phibes scripts, including one Phibes in the Holy Land, which we'd optioned, by the way. So yeah, the answer to your question is yes. We did keep an eye on the continuity, and we had several ideas, some of them pretty good, on where we thought that Phibes was going to go.
Wow, that's amazing. And Derek, I wanted to point out, one of our most beloved favorite actors, Peter Cushing, was originally supposed to play Dr. Vesalius in the movie, and it was played by Joseph Cotten. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I was excited when Peter Cushing turned up in the second film briefly, but yes. I didn't know he was supposed to. Wow, that's awesome. It's great.
He couldn't do it because Helen had just passed away, his wife.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
But wouldn't it have been great to see Peter Cushing as one of the inspectors chasing Phibes?
Oh, but it'd been awesome. I mean, Vincent Price and Peter Cushing were friends anyway, and to see them go back and forth against each other in other movies like Madhouse or whatever, just to kind of see that energy, that get the Phibesian touch would have been amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
Not that Joseph Cotten. I mean, the movie's great as it is, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well, and even Robert Quarry in the second one, Count Yorga.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. So William, did you get to meet Joseph Cotten?
No, can't. I wished I had. Can't say that I did. No. And remember, the shoot itself was in London, and I was involved in other things. So wished I had. He's one of my favorite actors. Peter Cushing would have been wonderful. The scenes, streamlined modern is the architectural. Damon can speak to that, but that style, we get a lot of comments on that. He and his son are playing chess in the living room, and we see that style. That seems to have caught on with the audiences, and we do get questions about what the new Phibes will look like. So we've tried to incorporate some of that in some of the visuals. It's funny. It's funny how some things stick, some things stand out and stay very current. And that particular style, it's had Damon can speak to this as well. It's had a renaissance today, that streamlined modern. If you're familiar with what the Bauhaus movement was doing, this is 100 years ago, but that style, we live in LA, and LA has tours of architectural gems which go back to that particular style. So I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, visually these movies are awesome, and Robert Forrest does a great job with the scenery and his camera work and everything.
I'll ask you guys a question. We have someone in mind. Damon has had some correspondence with the new Volnavia. If you thought about it at all, who would you see? All right, let's be blunt. How would you cast? How would you? It's got a couple of villains, including a female. How would you cast some of the key characters in this new story?
Oh boy,
I don't know.
I'll give you one hint. One of the keys in any story, particularly horror, is you need a worthy adversary. So in the first film, it was the doctors, all Harley Street, very well established physicians. In this new story, it's the Ponce de Leon Society, which is as the name suggests, it's a group of white coat entrepreneurs who believe they have found the secret of life eternal. because and I'm not going to give too much of it away, but they believe that in Lady Phibes they have found the secret of life eternal, and they market shares in their discovery to their wealthy membership.
Okay.
So who would you cast as the director of this? She's a young lady of the Ponce de Leon Society. She's a villain. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Oh.
Derek, I don't know.
Man,
That's a tough one.
Because you'd want somebody who could stand up, screen presence wise to Phibes. Man.
It's touch and go. It's touch and go down to the wire.
Like a Sigourney Weaver level actress.
A little too old for that, but she'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
She's got a very. Let's put it. Let's do this. Let's do this. I don't want to put the thinking cap on too hard now. We don't have too much time, but you know where Damon is. So if a light bulb turns on, please get in touch with him.
Okay.
and I'm very serious. It's a tough story, a very tight story, and it's most important that the adversaries are equal to the task. Most important.
Well, personally, the first person who comes to my mind in terms of a male actor who would be in a villainous role is got to be Lance Henriksen. I mean, you got to have Lance Henriksen in a Phibes sequel.
Okay. I will. I have to confess I don't know that name. Is he a film or television actor?
Film actor mainly. He's been on TV. If you saw his face, if you look him up afterwards, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. He's been in so many movies, but he's just such a good actor, and he's underplays things very well. Would you agree, Derek?
Yeah. It's not somebody I would have considered, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He's a phenomenal actor. Is he still? Yeah, I mean, I guess he's still acting.
He's 80 years old. I looked him up on IMDb.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He looks like some of the classic British actors of the 1970s. He may be, although there is a part in there in the Institute for a doctor. Why not?
Right.
Doctor. But yeah, let's see, he lives in New York. He's no longer married. He's got some kids. I'll make a note of it. You like him?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
All right, good. Lance Henriksen. Thank you for that. You'll get a credit for that.
Thank you. I think part of my indecision is I watch mainly older films, so trying to think of newer actors is a little difficult because, I do watch a lot of newer TV shows, but I'm watching a lot of old movies, so I haven't really kept up on a lot of the modern actors. Like, they don't immediately spring to mind.
All right, here comes the curveball. I see a lot of movies because I vote in the Academy, so I get them. I get them in the mail. I get them online and so forth. Of the last issuing, what have you seen, and what, if any, would be your favorite?
What do you mean, like movies that have come out in the past year or so?
Both, yeah. Voting is coming up now. So, of the last year's crop, if you've seen any that you could call a favorite that you really, really liked, I'd like to know about it. I've seen a lot of not quite so favorite, favorite. Well, that's just the way it is. It's one I did like, and my agent used to represent him. Is the new Borat film, which is just very, very funny. That's up for a couple Oscars.
Wow!
But other than that, I've seen a few. Some I didn't sit through because it was just painful. But that's it. No one has a crystal ball. It's a tough game, and the audience today's audience, first of all, is not a real film audience. I mean, our whole viewing experience is radically different. But if anything comes to mind, I'd like to know about it.
I just watched on Netflix. It was one of the Netflix movies. I Care a Lot. And it's a film from last year, but it stars Peter Dinklage and an actress by the name of Rosamund Pike, and
two terrific actors.
It was a really, I went into it, and about halfway through it, I'm thinking, okay, these are just two terrible people doing terrible things to each other, but I couldn't stop watching.
She's very underrated.
Yeah,
a wonderful actor, and of course Peter, a huge star, and I was pleasantly surprised that he's found new work after that tremendous series. I mean, that was one hell of a workout, but he's just extremely big talent. So I'll have to watch that. I think I have it. I'm looking at my collection now. I think I have it. I'll check it out either tonight or tomorrow.
Right on.
Excellent. Yeah, another one that comes to mind is Terry O'Quinn. He was in The Stepfather. He was on Lost. He's been on tons of stuff. He actually acted with Lance Henriksen on the show Millennium. He's another good one.
All right. Terry?
Yeah, O'Quinn. O''Quinn.
Okay. Oh, yeah. He's a tough guy. Yeah. He's younger. Yeah. Tall. Okay. I like that. Terry O'Quinn. Thank you. You give me two good ideas.
Oh, too funny. But what a great cast. I mean, Terry Thomas, shows up in both movies as different characters. And it was just, as soon as I see him on screen, I think of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. He's great.
Oh, man.
He's got, first of all, he's got that rubber face. And secondly, the gap in the teeth.
Yeah.
And most importantly, he's just funny to look at. I mean, you can't look at him without laughing.
Right.
And yet the scene he does is a brutal scene. He's being deadly blood drawn to violin music. And he's wondering who's that? And we watch him turn blue, literally. That is a very, very tough scene, especially for a comedian.
Right.
But he pulls it off. He's a classic actor. That's why Shakespearean actors do as well as they do, because they can do everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was funny too, because is it true? Well, no, it was funny. I read this that I thought it was funny. Is it true that Samuel Z. Arkoff actually didn't like the movie, didn't think it was going to be a success, and he actually wanted his name taken off of it?
I didn't hear about the name taken off. Sam and I met more than a few times after the film. Very likable guy. His cigar was as tall as he was, and to answer your question, no one at AIP imagined that it would be a box office. Actually, it was a box office smash. AIP was a B studio,
right?
In the business of A listing. They weren't another Paramount. They weren't another MGM. They weren't another Universal. But Phibes, at least to read the reviews at the time, Phibes got them close to the elite group, and I would have these conversations, and my ears would light up. Not that I was never going to say I told you so, but it was good to hear that that they let's just say this: it exceeded their expectations, and part of that, Milton Moritz was their publicist, and for example, the premiere at the Pantasias, he engineered that, and it was an Oscar event. It was red carpet. It was antique cars lined up on Hollywood Boulevard with cops on horseback. It was helicopters overhead. It was Klieg lights flashing in the air, and here comes the stars and the star contingent being exited from their limousines, going into the Pantages. And as we were living in San Diego at the time, we flew up, and my wife and I, she's a country girl, and I'm from a small town. it was like going to being invited to the Oscars and then entering the Pantages. I don't know if you guys have been inside, but at that time, and they've since renovated it, but it was like going into the Metropolitan Opera. These tiers of seats, all gold, and just the sound was wonderful. And we sat through the film, and I'm hearing my words, and I'm looking at the scenes, and it was a heavenly night. When we got out, we walked a block or two to the Hollywood Roosevelt. It was like walking on air.
Wow.
To have a coffee. But it was that kind of night. And Milton Morris engineered all that. So a big credit to him. He did what a good publicist does. He got Phibes out there and got it into position to become a box office smash. So there.
Was he the one that changed it? Because I heard the original marketing campaign was done more tongue-in-cheek, like with the whole "love means never having to say you're ugly" tagline, and they changed it to a more straightforward marketing campaign, right?
Well, that as far as I know, that was his line.
Oh, okay.
And it stuck. And by the way, gentlemen, if you know a Milton Moritz today, we'd like to know him or her. That's a serious question.
No, I don't, Derek.
Yeah, no, I don't. Huh.
Well, keep that on the short list then.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, my God. So what was the audience reaction to the movie when you first watched it?
My wife was a malaproppist, so her term was, we got a standing elevation. And that stuck. Well, we got home, the kids were home, and, we had to tell them all about the night and, what it was like in the standing elevation, and that sort of stuck. Yeah, that it was a stand-up and, lots of applause. It was like an Oscar performance. It was something that you put in your treasure book of memories, believe me. And we want to do it again, and that's why I said if you anything that you can add or put to it, please get in touch with Damon.
Absolutely. So, Damon, what was that like for you when your parents came home after the premiere?
Yes, it was a very exciting time. We, as my dad said, we're ready to do it again.
Excellent. And what was that like, being a kid? Did you grasp what was going on?
I was totally there for all of this. The whole family was. We were so up for it. And believe it or not, and I didn't even know it at the time, this is something I learned in the last couple of years, is that one of my classmates in high school was actually the son of Ron Dunas, one of the bigwigs at AIP.
Okay.
And so there's the commonality with that as well. And so it just was a sign of the times. It was very exciting. Hollywood was, they had a kind of a resurgence. Certainly Vincent Price had a huge resurgence and almost a second career with the advent of the Abominable Dr. Phibes. So I was totally into it. I thought we were going to make 5 films. At least that's what originally AIP was talking about with my dad and Jim Whiten. And
it was going to be a 5-picture deal. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, a 5-picture deal. So we've essentially been ready to go with another Phibes film since 1972. And as my dad mentioned, it went through all these permutations, different studios wanting to do it. And ultimately, we're still on track for that. It's just taking a little longer than we had anticipated.
Now, I have a question about a proposed TV series in the mid-'70s, and Derek, I think you would agree with me that this is something we would pay to see, where it was basically, it was pitched as Dr. Phibes fighting crimes using his considerable talents in makeup and technology.
I'd watch that. Why not?
Yeah.
That's a new one to me.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, where I looked it up online, they said Lewis Hayward and yourself, William, proposed the TV series to NBC.
Well, maybe in another life that happened. And when you're dealing with going piercing the veil and other lives, anything can happen. So I'll check that out. I'll have to look beyond. One final note. We have a series proposal which we recently developed. We have a pitch deck, if you know what that is, for the small screen and digital. This would be a digital production.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And today the industry has changed remarkably because of COVID-19. So digital is more popular production, and beyond that, the Writers Guild and the production companies have recently finished negotiations. It had been a very thorny issue, but they've just finished negotiations on it. So to take advantage of all this goodwill, Damon and I put together this digital version, and we are going to be getting that out along with the long form, the screen version, and with your goodwill and good insight, we hope to have another meeting with you both in over the coming months when we can make the announcement. That's
excellent.
What we would like.
Oh, I'd be honored. Yeah, that'd be great. I would think that with the way movies are being consumed today, you've mentioned streaming a couple of times, and Netflix and series. I can't imagine that Phibes would not find a home on a platform like that. The way that horror fans and just movie fans in general are now watching films. You said, the way the industry's changed a little bit with Netflix, with Shudder, with all of these streaming services now, and a lot of them seeming to be willing to go into the darker subject matter, horror, and that sort of thing. I can't imagine that you wouldn't be able to find an audience.
Well, it's relatively new. Both Amazon, I'm familiar with their product, Amazon and Netflix are both doing some pioneering work on their platforms. We're going to be testing those markets, with this digital entry, and we will keep you posted.
Oh, yeah, that would be awesome. I did have a couple quick questions, too. The dark comedy aspect of the film, it's in my mind, it's sort of a horror movie wrapped in dark satire. Was that your plan from the beginning, as well as the songs that were anachronistic because a lot of them were from the 30s and 40s? Was that all part of the whole scheme right from the get-go?
The score I can't speak to. It was Bajal Koch and Fried. Can't speak to that because that came on after the production. As far as the dark comedy, it's called comic relief. And in any horror, unless you're doing a Fritz Lang or the slasher movies, you've got to have, there's that moment when you're sitting in a dark theater and stuff starts to crawl up your ankle, and then you pinch yourself and you say it's only a movie, and that was put in there deliberately because just to see it on the face value is pretty horrific stuff. So we wanted in the original story this comic relief.
Nice. Derek, do you have any other questions?
I've just been kind of taking a back seat here and just enjoying the conversation, but But yeah, the dark comedy, the satire, the comic relief. Vincent Price seems to be perfectly suited for that sort of thing. And I'm friends with his daughter Victoria Price, and she's said some pretty complimentary things about these films as well. I know that Price fans adore these movies, and I'm really looking forward to this 50th anniversary. Are there any big plans for what we're going to do to celebrate the films?
I'll leave that up to Damon.
Obviously, this podcast is part of that, and we're going to be on another podcast, Vincent Price Legacy UK, and Peter Fuller is going to be hosting that. We are going to be getting out our save the date notices, and that's going to be right around May 20th. So when I confirm those actual dates, I'll be sending that out, and that's going to at least our social media celebration. And then in commemoration and celebration of the event, we're also going to be publishing a omnibus of all the Dr. Phibes books so far. So we will have 5 Dr. Phibes books in one volume as a 50th anniversary celebration for everyone to get their Phibes
fix.
Get their Phibes
fixed through a new book, and that will be coming out soon. We will make that available. We're going to publish that and get that out into bookstores.
Excellent.
In your area.
Excellent.
I'll leave you with one secret now. Book number 6 in editing stages right now. Stay tuned. Nice
Excellent.
talking to you. Take care, and let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. Glad to have you, William.
Okay, so long.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Rigor. Thank you, Derek. I apologize for the intermittent connection here, but we had a great time, and let's do it again.
Excellent, excellent. And Damon, real quick, can you tell the listeners where to find you online?
So we're on Facebook. We have about 5 Dr. Phibes pages, and you can search for those on Facebook. It would be Dr. Phibes, Dr. Phibes Rises Again, Dr. Phibes in the Beginning, and Dr. Phibes Will Name You a Secret. Those are our main book pages. The newest one being Dr. Phibes, The Android Bots. So just type those in Facebook, or just Google them, and they will get you to Facebook. And we also have a website, the official Dr. Phibes blog, and we have our Twitter page, Dr. Anton Phibes. So you can find us on all those social medias, and we'd love to have you join us and become a member of our Dr. Phibes Cult Classic Series page, which represents all the books that we have going right now, and notices for future projects.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, Damon, and thank you your father for being on the show with us. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys. I apologize for being in and out, but you guys have, from what I've been hearing, you've been great hosts, and I know my dad enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it as well. So thank you all for your time.
Next time we'll have to get one of those devices to hook up to your throat like Dr. Phibes so we can get...
Right. We're going to have to do that. I'm going to have to have a better connection for sure. So looking forward to that, Derek. Yeah. I'll just plug it into my neck. And...
There you go.
Okay, guys.
All right. Take care, Damon. So, Derek, any last thoughts on Dr. Phibes movies and all that's going on?
I know they had limited time, and I'm so grateful that they were able to spend some time on your podcast, and I want to thank you for having me on as well. I'm excited for what the future of Phibes has to offer, and it sounds like they really want to go film-wise, but I really feel strongly that streaming might be a good option here, especially when you look at like what Netflix is doing, with the prequel type material they do as well, like that Ratchet series he did not too long ago.
Yeah.
The prequel to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and turning that into a series.
Yeah.
I could really see this finding a home on streaming, but I'd love to see it on the big screen too. So
right, we could have a whole Phibes, a shared universe.
There you go. A Phibes cinematic universe.
There you go.
I like it. What does she get up to when Phibes isn't around? And how did Phibes really get started? And what about oh man, No, I want to see that.
I didn't want to sound like a moron when they were here, but I didn't know that Volnavia was was clockwork. I thought she was a real person. Did I miss something in the movie?
I don't think you did, because I was a little confused by that, too.
All right, good.
And I just watched it.
Yeah, me too.
And I was trying to figure out, like, how did she come back in the second film? He just kind of said, I need you, and she showed up. So, you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah.
They would know better than us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sounds like their imagination is just unbelievable with all the stories they've got in their heads. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what that's like at all.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? Oh, man.
No, I am excited to see what they do. I'm really excited. And I've heard about the McDowell being, fantasy cast as Phibes for a long time.
Oh,
it sounds
really?
like things are moving along, and they really want to make that happen. So
wow,
I'd love to see it. And, he loves the genre. McDowell loves the genre. He doesn't mind playing in it at all. And it would be amazing to see.
Yeah. I did think of a couple of actresses now that nobody's probably heard of. They're on TV actresses, but I may send those off to Damon and see what he says. But, that would be fun if we get, we said, hey, put this person in your movie, and they did, and the movie was a huge success,
Yeah, well, then you need to start talking about some residuals, and, suddenly the podcast budget goes way up. And
right.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, it's been so awesome. Thanks for coming on the show again. You can't be a stranger. You got to come on a little more often.
We've been talking
yeah.
off mic and all that.
Yeah.
We're going to get some more stuff going on, and you're going to come on to MKR more, too.
That's right. Awesome.
Got to make it happen.
Awesome. So tell our listeners how they can find you online, Derek.
Oh, boy, I'm all over the place. Actually, I just made it easier for everybody. I just set up a Linktree. Linktree is basically a one-stop shop for people to put in everything that they do if they do a whole bunch of things like I do. So go to Linktree, and that's actually linktr.ee / and then put in my name, Derek M. Cook. Now that I'm saying this out loud, I realize my last name is spelled a little differently, so maybe this isn't easier for people. But linktr.ee / Derek M. Cook, and that's DEREKMKOCH, and that's going to get you links to Monster Kid Radio. That's going to get you links to Dice Monster Dice. That's going to get you links to my book, Monster Hunter for Hire, my personal Facebook page, my personal Twitter. Anything you need to know about me, you're going to find it there. At least you get started there, and you'll be able to branch out and find me all over the internet. But my main podcast is Monster Kid Radio at monsterkidradio.net.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Derek, and we'll definitely talk soon.
Sounds good, man. I'll hold you to it.
Well, that's all the time we have for Then Is Now today. Again, please check out the Abominable Dr. Phibes and all of William and Damon's books and links. And if you're not listening to Monster Kid Radio, you need to do so right now. You can send your feedback to thenisnow42@gmail.com. You can also join in the conversation at our Facebook Then Is Now podcast group. Then Is Now podcast is now a proud member of the Dorkening Podcast Network, so be sure to check out the other great shows there at thedorkening.com. You can also visit our website at havenpodcasts.com, where you'll find our sister show, The East Meets the West, in which we discuss Shaw Brothers films and spaghetti western movies. And Then Is Now is on YouTube, so visit youtube.com/user/UncleDeath1 to get the latest videos, as well as other fun videos. Please subscribe to our YouTube page, and also share the video versions of our podcast with your friends, and get them to subscribe as well. Don't forget to go wherever you download your podcast from and leave us a great review so that more listeners can find us. You can find us on all the podcasting apps, especially the big three, iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. Class dismissed.
For more shows like the one you just heard, check out the Dorkening Podcast Network at thedorkening.com.
This Now podcast is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is copyright Jupiter Media.